Greetings and salutations. Dave Duford here at DeFord Insurance Group. I'm here with a friend in the business, Mr. Richard. Richard, say hello.
Hi.
Richard's here. He's going to be here to discuss essentially what it's like to sell final expense face-to-face successfully. We're going to talk about his strategy when it comes to leads, his strategy in selling and prospecting to get appointments, and then talk about his goals and what he wants to accomplish over the next and following year. So, Rich, before we get into that, feel free to introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Richard Talbot, and I've been in the insurance industry for 9 years, and I live in Franklin, Tennessee, just south of Nashville. And I've been working with David now for about 3 months, so really enjoying it. It's been a great fit for me.
Yeah, it's good to have you, Richard. Especially appreciate it. So, you've been in the business for a while, and now you're kind of focusing on final expense, correct? And that's kind of your main strategy. I think, first of all, if you don't mind me asking you, why final expense? What do you find about final expense that you like, and why you're focusing on that at this point in your career?
Okay, so in the previous 9 years, I've focused on the mortgage protection segment of the industry, and it did very well, but it's cyclical in nature with the economy. And so, with the interest rates, being near 8%, it isn't as fruitful as it was, say a year ago. And so I like the final expense aspect in that there's always a need for it. And it's not as dependent on the economy as far as success. So it's basically recession proof. And it allows you to run more daytime appointments, whereas with the mortgage, you're always going to be out there till 10 o'clock at night. And then you have 2-hour drive home or whatever. So it just gives you a little bit, better overall quality of life in the end.
And thank you for sharing that, because it's really relevant as of the filming of this video. We're hearing, you may see this years in the future, and hopefully it doesn't turn out this way. But, the economy sounds like it's on the rocks. Inflation certainly is out there and continuing to go up. And there's more and more talk about guarantees or certainties of some sort of recession. And the problem with some insurance products is that they're tied directly to the overwhelming abundance and exuberance of the economy, or the death of the economy. Mortgage protection is one of those, because the way mortgage protection leads are acquired is through new home sales. And if new home sales slow down, well, then that's less people you can call on to bring in as leads. And those people may not be as comfortable to buy life insurance. A lot of people think it's discretionary at a younger age, as most of the mortgage protection leads are. So that's why it's why I focused on final expense, because the last recession around the Great Recession, the mortgage market, the real estate market was decimated. There wasn't a lot of activity there, but final expense was cooking, because we've got the seniors retiring in droves for the next 20 years, the baby boomer retirement, et cetera. And that means for good, solid upward trend, regardless of the economy. So, Richard, let's move into kind of a day in the life of what you do. So tell the audience kind of how you focus on selling final expense, as far as, do you do it over the phone? Do you do it face-to-face? And kind of walk us through a typical week.
Okay. Yeah, so I do it face-to-face. And a typical week is, making sure that you get your lead order in. So you have to, strategize around that as far as what areas you're going to be working, how far they are from where you live, how far they are from the other areas that you currently have going, what the data counts are, with those areas. So how many leads could you potentially generate, and would it be enough? Then kind of what your budget is. And then also keeping in mind that you could be, at a 4-week delay on stuff that you're mailing. So you have to plan ahead accordingly, meaning that if you mail for 4 consecutive weeks, you may not start to really receive mail until that 4th week. So you have to plan for that. And then, once the leads come in, then I'll take a dial day, and I'll go ahead and mark out in my appointment book a time slot for every hour. And I'll circle those hours. But I typically don't start till 11, because I have a big drive ahead of me. And so I'll do like 11 to 7, like 8 appointments. And so then I know what time slots I'm trying to fill before I even call anybody. And it's just putting people in the slots. and then I'll go ahead and call them. And I normally do like a 3 dial sessions. So I'll do like a morning, a lunchtime, and then an evening. And so that way I'm able to catch people at all different points of their day. And normally calling them 3 times in a row. So by the time you've called them, 9 times in one day, they're typically likely to answer their phone, especially if it's a cell phone. They see they have 9 missed calls. So
right, you're calling them into submission.
Yeah, so that's how I plan that. And normally, as long as I have 20, 30 leads, I'm easily able to get 8 appointments in the one geographic area for that next day. Because I may have 30 leads, but they could be really spread out. So I'm just trying to focus on the ones that are close together.
So a couple of things here. Oh, go ahead, and we'll unpack some of it.
Yeah, so I'll just like put the leads in stacks by the city, and then do it like that.
So you mentioned mail. So for the new people out there, what Richard's using is direct mail leads. These are postcards that go out from a mail house. You don't actually mail them off or do any of that stuff. You contact a lead vendor. We recommend several 1-star agents to work with. And then it takes about 3 to 4 weeks to get those back. And then you've got the leads, at least in electronic form, that you can show the person or call on to set appointments. My question to you, Richard, is, and you've been around the block a long time in different organizations before ending up here with the Ford Insurance Group. What do you like about direct mail versus other types of leads?
Yeah, what I like about direct mail is it's undeniable that they filled it out because they put their age, they write their name, has them rewrite their address. And so it's their handwriting and they can see that. And typically they did it within the last week or two. So even if they can't really remember, if you show it to them face to face, it definitely triggers them doing that. Versus if you do like a internet lead, there's lots of different sources for that. It's just hard to prove that they typed it when you bring out a typed form in front of their face. And so that's really my favorite thing about the direct mail. And then the other thing with direct mail is you're really able to control the county and make sure it's all in that one area. Versus if you're doing an internet lead, it could be a 50-mile radius. So that can leave you, on a wild goose chase.
Yeah. And I'll in case you guys out there haven't understood this yet, Richard's selling face-to-face, right? He's not selling over the phone. Direct mail is the best source of leads for the face-to-face agent. There's other options out there, but nothing really gets as close to direct mail. And, you can be working rural counties like Richard does in the Southeast and drop direct mail, and you'll have leads, a good bit of leads, even in smaller counties. Granted, it starts to get spread out there as you go more in the sticks. But compared to something like Facebook, right, Richard? I mean, like, dude, they can be all over the place. And even though you pay less for Facebook leads, imagine all the extra time and wear and tear that you have to incur just to get to those leads. You kind of have an opportunity cost and a higher cost just to travel and gas and all that stuff.
Right. And you just wouldn't be able to see the same number of people in one day. So that's really the biggest challenge, is you need to see as many people as you can.
I'll relay a story just quick on that, because one of the things we'll talk about, I think, as we get to our goal section is, you have a big goal next year, I think, of writing 400,000 in final expense. And a big part of that happening is scale. You have to scale your leads. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But when I used to run Facebook leads near the end of my full-time career, the most I could get out of Facebook leads was maybe 10 appointments a day, which is a lot, but that would start at like 8 in the morning till like 10 o'clock at night. So I was running like at least 14 hours, 15 hours a day. But if I took those same 15 hours a day and I bought direct mail, I could set 15 easy. So I could, 50% increase in my appointment flow and 50% in my close rates, right? So, the better deal for a scaled up perspective, if you're running face-to-face, to me, is direct mail. So let's go over a couple of things first. Number one, Richard, what do you say to book appointments? Can you take us through your script real quick, kind of like what your process and strategy is?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just use the one that you provided, but, basically I'll just say, hey, John, this is Richard. I was just getting back to you about the green postcard you sent off in the mail a few weeks ago, requesting information on the new state regulated final expense program. And the reason for my call is it's just my job to get you the information that you requested. And then I I'll just typically confirm real quick just to make sure that they're still engaged. And I'll be like, it looks like you're still there at 123 Main Street and Anywhere USA. And then they'll say, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And it looks like you put down that you're 68 and Mary's 65. They're like, yep. I'm like, okay. Well, my job's real simple. They just send me out there to give you that information. Just takes about 15 minutes or so. They actually have me scheduled out that way tomorrow. Looks like I could do 10 a.m. or 12 o'clock. What time would be better for you and Mary? And then they'll pick a time, and then I'll be like, okay. And is that going to come up okay on the GPS? And then, when I get there, what color is your house going to be? Is the number going to be on your mailbox or on the house? And I'll be like, okay, can you do me a favor? Grab a pen and a piece of paper real quick. Then they'll grab one, and I'll just be like, and my name's Richard. Last name Talbot. I'll spell it out for him. And I'll give him my phone number. Or no, I don't give my phone number. I'm sorry. I'll give him the time and the day. You don't want to give him your phone number.
Why don't you, for the audience sake?
Yeah, just because if they have hesitancy later, they could call you back and try to cancel the appointment.
Right.
So
you don't want to talk to them again after the phone call.
Yeah, you don't want to talk to them until you get to the house.
Right.
So yeah, so I give them my name, spell it out, and then just give them the day and the time and have them write that down. And then they're more likely to remember that you're going to come, even though it's only 24 hours. You got to keep in mind that they're seniors and they're forgetful. And so doing all that just kind of helps confirm and legitimize everything that you are actually coming. And so, I try to only schedule 24 hours out because it just increases your show rate a lot.
So again, you're asking all these questions like, what color is your trailer? Where does it show up on the GPS? All this stuff. You confirm that not for any other reason, just to help them remember to show up is kind of what we're hearing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because 95% chance my GPS will get me right there without any problem.
What's the number one piece of advice you would give a new agent who is going to be setting appointments over the phone? If you could tell them one thing to optimize their success, what it would be?
I guess probably the biggest thing would just be make sure that you have enough leads and don't set your expectations too high. Like that, if you're brand new and you have 20 leads and 5 of them don't have phone numbers, that you're going to set 10 appointments. That's just, it's not realistic. But if you have 30 leads and and some of them don't have phone numbers, some of them don't answer, you could still set 10 appointments. So I think just put the numbers in your favor and don't be afraid to invest, because once you invest in quantity, then you really start to make those sales and succeed. But you can't cheap out on it because you're not going to have sustained success that way.
Right, 100%. Yeah, there's safety in numbers, right?
Exactly.
It's one thing we try to preach to our guys is you don't have to start with 50 direct mail leads a week. That's not what we're saying. It's probably not a good idea. Once you get some traction, as Richard will talk about, the way to make more money in final expenses through scale. It's through doing more of the same. You don't really have to change much except work more and buy more when it comes to leads. Now, what happens with your leads? You mentioned leads that don't have phone numbers. Yeah, some of these people send back cards. They don't fill them out all the way because they don't want you calling. What do you do with those leads?
Yeah, so you put them in an app called Road Warrior, and then it'll optimize your route. And it'll number each house on which ones you're supposed to go to. And then it gives you GPS directions to them. So you'll door knock those in between your appointments. And even if you have an appointment that's halfway through the Road Warrior route, it'll still show you which house is closest to you so you can go to that one before your next appointment. So yeah, basically there's an app that helps you with optimizing your time and your door knocks.
And that's the Road Warrior app. I assume you could find this on any app store or whatever, right?
Correct.
So you're going to door knock these people. What, how do you door knock? What do you say? What's your strategy?
Yes. The way that I door knock is pretty simple. I'll just say, hey, are you John? And I'll hold the postcard out in front of me. And then I have a little lanyard with my picture ID and my state license. And I'll just say, John, we've been trying to get a hold of you for a while. You probably don't answer the phone if you don't know who's calling. They're like, no, I definitely don't. And I'll just be like, the reason I'm here is just the postcard that you and Mary had sent back in to us. requesting information on the new state regulated final expense program. And I guess you were just trying to get information on that. It only takes about 10 minutes or so. You have a place where we can sit down. And then I'm just trying to get in the house and sit at the kitchen table, ideally, or on the sofa secondary if they don't have a table, or if the table is piled with 500 magazines.
Very common in our business, by the way. So a couple of things here. Door knocking. It's 2022. Showing up unannounced at people's houses may freak out some people. What's your actual real life experience been door knocking people who don't expect it? Are people friendly, rude? Like, what's the gist of what you've experienced?
Yeah, I mean, they're really friendly. I think the only thing that may happen is they may just be home and not answer the door, but they're not going to be mean to you. I mean, they're going to be friendly, or they just won't answer the door.
My experience has been the same for years, and other agents as well. Like there's all this like fear out there about people showing up randomly, and it's warranted, I suppose. But the reality is, if you got that card they sent in because they solicited you, right? I'm not here, but other than because you did this, it kind of changes the dynamics. That's why having leads is so powerful, because they raised their hand and requested the information. You're the one inconveniencing yourself. They get to sit at their house and not burn time and gas, right? So people tend to be pretty nice about it. What's the number one objection that you get at the door, and how do you overcome it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is they would say, like, that they're not interested, or they change their mind, and then you'd be like, that's no problem. That's exactly why I'm here. This takes about 10 minutes to get you the information. What you decide to do with it from there is up to you. You have a place where you can sit down.
And so you just go back to that script and just try to get back in the door.
Yeah, you just acknowledge it and then ask them again for the close, essentially, which is getting inside to talk to them.
Why don't you try to sell the product at the door? Like, well, it's great. It's great. Like, why don't you start the presentation at the door? Like they say, I already got life insurance. Well, what kind of life insurance do you have? Who's it with? Blah, blah, blah. Why don't you do that? Why do you just insist on coming in and just giving the information?
Yeah, I mean, it would be essentially like a driveway appointment or something. People never really buy when they're all standing up. They need to get them to sit down to relax. And getting in their home is it lowers their guard, and they get comfortable, and they're more likely to talk to you for 30 minutes, which it's going to be really hard to sell when they're on their edge and on the porch and rush for time. And then if you need them to get out policies, and then they have to go inside, and then there's just a lot of issues with being on the porch trying to sell it.
Yeah, no, that's critical. That's one of the mistakes I made early as an agent. I would start qualifying them at the door if they got pushback, and I never got in any of those doors. Maybe randomly I did, but I could have gotten in more doors if I just insisted, hey, let's just sit down and talk, and I'll show you how it works. You want to sit out here or come in? Yeah. So
right.
Tip for those you door knocking, and it works for appointment setting too. Cool. So we talked about your day. You call your leads, you set appointments just the next day out, and then you repeat that process, I guess, a second time, correct?
Right.
Great. And then door knock in between. Where are we going? So let's transition now to kind of like our conversation we had the other day. You and I meet on a regular basis. We do some goal setting, some analysis. I think it's been super helpful, kind of just in general. And I always encourage our agents that join the Ford Insurance Group to do this if they feel it's important, but having that kind of mentorship of coaching is important. One of the things you shared with me yesterday, your goal next year is to write $400,000 in final expense. And I just want you to kind of share that with the audience and kind of what you're going to do to accomplish that.
Okay. Yeah. So I did write 400,000 in 2020. Actually 409,000 each paid. And then last year I did 365. And so I really want to get back to my goal of doing the 400,000 again. Just because it lines up with some things I'm trying to achieve in the future, financially and things like that. And so in order to achieve those numbers, it really kind of goes back to what we said, as far as making sure that you have a sufficient quantity of leads every single week, so that you're so busy that you can't possibly get to them all. Versus on the flip side, where you don't have enough and you're trying to squeeze blood out of a rock because you only have 10 people to talk to.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. And when I started with David 3 months ago, I was kind of transitioning from the mortgage to the final expense. So I've been working with this new lead vendor and just experimenting with a lot of things as far as, areas and number of leads and how many to mail and that kind of thing. Because we'll mail out the letters in, thousands of quantities, so like 3, 4, 5,000, but we don't exactly know how many is going to come back. And so it's kind of a guessing game for a while until we get like an average. So I've been a little conservative in that fact, and that's been generating me about 25 to up to 30 leads per week on average. And I need to get that really up to the 50 to 60 mark. And so now that I have a track record and can kind of anticipate the response rate, and I've tested a few different areas, I'll be able to do that better and get those 50 to 60 leads. And that's also going to help me because I've really only been in the field about 2 days a week right now, doing that 12 to 14 hour day with driving and everything. But I'm looking to increase that to about 4 days with the double lead quantity. And so I've been averaging around 5,000 a week, but that's going to get me to that 10,000 a week. Because even though 400,000 is about 33 grand a month issue paid, you want to over anticipate that because there's always going to be something that happens, or you'll have a bad week or maybe a bad month. But if you do 10,000 every week, then it's all going to work out in the end. Right. And so that's kind of the things that I'm looking at, and that's the direction that I'm headed, and pretty excited about the new year. And it's also going to help with the lead vendors currently. They're mailing out for the AEP for Medicare, and they're also mailing out for final expense. So it's definitely impacting our response rate on the mail campaigns. But once January kicks around, the AEP Medicare will be finished with, and it'll be like full throttle. We'll get the good response rates again. And so it's going to be great.
Yeah. Now, so let's step back one moment here, because I want agents to understand this. Like, you have a big goal, 400,000 in issue paid business for next year. And just to make it clear for them, and please restate this, what is the number one way that you're going to do that?
The number one way to do it is have a ton of leads and a ton of appointments. So, I think that, having 20 appointments a week will help me to get to that. And so just to make sure that I can set those appointments with different areas and disconnected numbers and people that don't answer and all that, getting that 50 to 60 leads is going to put all those numbers in my favor. And if I happen to get 25 or 30 appointments, that's even better, But I think keeping the bare minimum goal of 20 appointments a week, no matter what, then that's going to be the number one factor to success.
Yeah, that's the thing that I just want to make abundantly clear to everybody in here. This is the beauty of final expense, is that you don't have to do anything different to make more money. Once you know what you're doing and it's getting results, like in Richard's case, the solution to making more is not coming up with a brand spanking new untested sales pitch or some new lead program. It's doing more of what works. It's that simple. But it's that hard, because the last guy I was talking to, Joe, Richard, we were doing an interview with him too. He was saying he's got that what if, side of them. Well, what if I did it this way? What if I did it that way? In a sense, the shiny object syndrome, right? Right. You really have to do away with that and really get focused. And it's way harder to focus and be committed than it is to always have the what ifs in the background. So the fact that you're in recognition of this and just doing more of what works and following through in that, you're so much closer to getting this goal than somebody who's going to go down that ever curving path to, random stuff that ultimately just drains you of your money and time. The sooner you can just do what works and more of it, closer you can be to your goals, whether it's like Richard's or something else.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Richard, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate you being here. If you're interested in joining DeFord Insurance Group, daviddeford.com/FQ, you learn more about how our business works, what we require from our agents to join our agency. And other than that, Richard, man, I appreciate your time on this and sharing your goals and your strategy in business with us.
Absolutely. Thanks, David. Thanks for having me.